What's going on, everyone? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL. All season long, Toyota is celebrating the passion, traditions, and unforgettable moments that make football America's obsession, from fantasy football to every kickoff, rivalry, and Sunday ritual. And it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do that is Josh Norris, my good friend. Josh, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I mean, first real day of preseason action. The viewers and you, including Matt Harmon, might laugh at me. I love preseason football. I love seeing the rookies on display. I love seeing the depth charts, and I'm ready to rewatch all 16 preseason games this weekend after we do the show.
You are a true sicko, and I say that lovingly, of course, as I say many times on the show. Sicko is a complimentary term. On this here program, for sure. Yes. So, Josh, you are a true sicko for that. What do you think? Of course. What do you think is more disgusting about you, that you rewatch every preseason snap or that you rewatch every post-draft presser in its entirety?
Well, that's true. I'll tell you this, Matt. The sickest thing about me, and you know how I know I'm old now, I started eating cottage cheese last week. That's the sickest thing about me.
No, that's not that sick. I eat cottage cheese all the time. That's good.
Yeah, I could tell. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It works. Yeah. Could be worse. Could be worse. Could be worse. We are not talking cottage cheese on today's show. Okay. There are the video views are just tanking right now at this point, talking about cottage cheese to open up the
Big
show. We are actually going to go round by round from our most recent Yahoo Fantasy Staff Mock Draft to give you our biggest takeaways. It's our first tight end premium draft as well, so a lot to get into there. But before we get into our big episode here today, we have some very big news for you, the people out there. Yes, that's right. For the Bills fans, for the Boone Brigade, all in the Buffalo area. Yahoo Fantasy Draft Weekend presented by Versed is coming to Dick's House of Sport in the Buffalo area on Saturday, August 29th, 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be there. Justin Boone himself, Buffalo Bills native son, and of course, Josh Norris will also be there as well for a special live edition of the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. We're going to break down everything, and I mean everything you need to know before your fantasy draft. We're going to answer your questions during a live Q&A, and we're going to be giving away prizes throughout the day. So you got Norris, you got Boone, you got prizes. I'm going to be there too. So if you're getting ready for your drafts, this is the place to be. Bring your league mates, bring your friends. You can bring your enemies. We don't care. Come hang out with us. We're going to see you in Amherst, New York on Saturday. It's going to be great. 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there. Okay. That's exciting, Josh. I mean, look at that. First company event for you, my friend. It's going to be an absolutely electric time, but we got business to talk through here today. We have our first tight end premium mock draft here. We launched tight end premium here on Yahoo this week as a part of 29 Days of Fantasy because so much is happening here at Yahoo right now, one of which is these new tight end premium formats. Josh, big picture thoughts on tight end premium doing this draft. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, the number one thing with tight end premium this season is, where does Brock Bowers go, right? And I think there's two ways of thinking about this. Does he go with a third overall pick behind, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson? Does he then go as the fifth overall pick behind Puka Nacua and Jamar Chase? Matt, I think the absolute latest he can go is fifth overall. What do you think?
Yeah, he went third overall in this draft, as we will talk about here. I do think fifth overall probably makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm still taking the two running backs, Gibbs, Robinson for sure. Puka went ahead of Jamar Chase here. That'll be an interesting one to talk about when we get into the first round.
Yep.
But I would take Bowers over Puka, and I think he kind of mixes in right there to me.
Yeah, and I think the big reason why, and I don't mean to jump ahead in topics, but like Brock Bowers is one of those players in just a normal fantasy league that can break it for you, right? That can be the league winner. Like sure. we go back to, the 2020 season for Travis Kelce, and look, that's the peak what we're chasing here, right? But he scored 6 points or 5 points more than the tight end 2 that year, and about 8 or 9 points ahead of the tight end 5. And like, Matt, how many fantasy matchups come down to 8 points a week? And that's the tight end 5. That's not even the tight end 12 that we're talking about here. Now, obviously the Las Vegas Raiders in 2026 are very different than what the 2020 Kansas City Chiefs that went 14-2 and were fantastic, were the best offense in the league. But with that said, with what we saw with Clint Kubiak and what he did in Seattle in terms of identifying his best pass catcher and in heavier personnel sets of funneling everything in the direction of the lead pass catcher, I know that they are wide receiver and tight end labels, and those are different. But looking at that wide receiver room, he most likely will do the same thing here with Brock Bowers. So I'm not saying he's going to be exactly JSN, but maybe he approaches it. Maybe it is that simple here, Matt.
I think it's about 89% that simple, if I could put a totally random number on it. I think he won't, put up Jackson Smith and Jigba numbers. Talked about that yesterday with Nate on the tight end preview, how that's just almost kind of impossible for him to do it, and especially in the ways that JSN did it. But at the same time, one thing I thought I was going to be kind of over this, but what bothers me is that we are doing the same thing with the Raiders that we did last year. And again, Nate and I did an episode on this last year. We're going to do it again, I think, next week, which is essentially just looking at the teams where offensive projections and ADP are most out of whack, where you've got multiple guys going early in ADP versus where these offenses are projected to be. The Raiders were a screaming red flag to me last year because of that, because we just had two guys going in the first two rounds. We're pretty much just doing that again. So how much better do they have to be, Josh, I guess the Genty thing aside, but maybe for Bowers to, can they be one of the 5 worst offenses in the NFL and he also reaches that statistical ceiling?
Yes, I think they can. Now, I'm not saying, again, he's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I think from a pure pass catching standpoint, we're only talking about 2 players here. And even bad offenses can at least get 1 there, if not 2. So now I hear what you're saying. I also would add, we trust Clint Kubiak way more than at this point we would have trusted Chip Kelly and, the environment that was there last year. And what has Clint Kubiak done in every single spot that he's gone to? Turn those offenses into explosive downfield passing groups. And that was the New Orleans Saints, which no one thought that would be possible at the time, with Derek Carr, and then with Seattle. And that's not how they were viewed heading into that season either. And he transformed them into I think 10th and 2nd in terms of explosive 10+ yard gains out of that offense. So I hear you. I am more hesitant to do that with the Arizona Cardinals, for example, who have 4 picks in the top 95 overall versus the Raiders. And we had Ryan Paganetti on our show who worked for the Raiders last year. And he brought up that their goal was to set an NFL record for targets and catches in NFL history for Brock Bowers. And guess what? Through 3 quarters, it was looking pretty good. The dude had 120 receiving yards and then, had the PCL injury and the season fell away. So again, especially in your normal leagues, I think Brock Bowers could be that pillar piece. And then when we get to tight end premium, I'm all for taking him at the 3rd or 5th overall selection.
All right, we kind of jumped ahead to the Bowers discussion, which is mostly the most interesting. No, you're good. Mostly the thing that is interesting in the first round. The rest of the picks they kind of are what they are. But before we jump into just the round by round, I did want to just bring up our 2 teams here, because we probably don't do this enough when we go through these mock draft exercises. Last one that the Boone and I broke down, I hated my team. Didn't like the way it turned out. And honestly, I've kind of pivoted my strategy mostly because of some of these early mocks that I didn't like. This one, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about how these things have gone. What do you? Because we kind of took similar strategies here, Josh.
Yep.
If just from an overall perspective, we both came away with 3 receivers in the first 6 rounds. We are both kind of and look, obviously, in a normal situation, this is about the first time I've taken Trey McBride, who I took in the 2nd round here. I have not taken Trey McBride a single other time this offseason through any fantasy draft I've done. So this is the first time I did it. Felt pretty good about it because of the tight end premium format, but because of that, then I had to sacrifice that running back 2 spot, waited a little bit longer than I would have wanted, and we both end up with the 2 classic, we got to grab a running back 2 guy here at some point, which is Bucky Irving and Quinshon Judkins. So I felt pretty good about how this team came together, was able to wait around till the 8th round to grab a quarterback, which was Drake May, which felt like a huge coup, probably is only going to happen in a draft full of, industry bros. How did you feel about the way it played out for you?
You're right. Our drafts are very similar outside of kind of like exchanging round 2 and round 6 and kind of flip-flopping those. I love my draft. Anytime I can exit, no matter what, the settings are, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kenneth Walker III, and Malik Neighbors in the top 3 rounds, like I am feeling pretty. And we'll talk about, Neighbors and some of those round 3 picks as we go along here. And even Garrett Wilson. Now, as you said, when we go through the strategy of just overall drafting, you're not going to feel perfect about every single one of your positions at the end of your draft. And there's going to be a weakness somewhere. For me and for you, it's probably the uncertainty at that running back 2 spot. Like you have Bucky Irving, I have Quinshon Judkins. We could pick apart Bucky as, hey, it's a 3-person backfield. What exactly is he going to be in year 3 with the Bucks? For me, it's Quinshon Judkins, awesome individual talent. He's also a Cleveland Brown, offensive line going through it, and he's attached to those awful quarterbacks. So then, you followed it up with, for me, Bill Krosky-Merritt. You followed it up with Rico Dowdle and Chris Rodriguez. So at the end of the day, we are hoping to also have our eyes peeled for the waiver wire, and we just like turn that, running back 2 spot into some steady production as the season goes along, while feeling great about all of our other picks.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't really like about my team was that I have 2 boring veterans as my bench receivers, Michael Pittman, Jacoby Myers. Like I'd prefer one higher upside swing at some point there. But my upside swing was Marshawn Lloyd, who I took as the last pick before our fearless leader, Jason Klobaka, makes me take a kicker and a defense in these last 2 rounds in order to, I guess, make the whole thing come together. But yeah, I felt pretty good about this team. Let's get into the round by round breakdown here and get into the first round. We had the Brock Bowers conversation, but the rest of the first round kind of went to plan here. Jahmyr Gibbs first overall, Bijan Robinson, Brock Bowers, Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown to you, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor. I took James Cook 10th overall, CeeDee Lamb, and then Saquon Barkley to round out the first round. Hopefully you guys are number one, hopefully subscribe to the channel. For God's sakes, if you haven't already, if you're watching the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't, make sure you do that. And then check out the interview that I had with James Cook, where he talked about, maybe he didn't talk about, I intimated, like, are you going to be catching more passes this year? And
he refused to talk about it.
But he did have a big smile on his face and said, see you on Sunday. So we'll see what that means. I felt pretty good about James Cook, 10th overall here. Anything else from the first round stand out to you, Josh?
On almost every single platform out there, Ashton Jeanty goes ahead of Saquon Barkley, or even sometimes James Cook on these platforms. I love to see, us take Saquon Barkley ahead of him here. I can't even remember where he goes in round 2, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I am one that's firmly in the camp that Saquon should be going ahead of Ashton. It's kind of what we talked about at the start, where, the Eagles, albeit their shortcomings and their questions, are just, a better offense than what the Raiders are projected for. And at the same time, to me, everything has to get better for the rushing attack in order for the Eagles passing game to be good. And Saquon Barkley is still the figurehead of that. And I think he can get back to not exactly what it did in 2024, where he broke fantasy leagues, but really make good on his even 12th overall selection here. I have him 7th overall in my rankings.
I have him 10th. I have Jeanty 12th overall. And Jeanty's a guy that I've kind of had hovering around somewhere between 11, 12-ish. But Barkley, definitely, the more you look at him, the more appealing that gets. Also, I've bumped someone down into the second round who we'll talk about here that went in the second round on this one. But yeah, for the most part, I think the only other interesting thing was Hayden took Puka Nacua over Jamar Chase, which I don't know. Then he has to see today that Puka ran into a sliding glass door, Michael Scott style, at the Michael Rubin party,
and
or
also
whatever.
might get suspended.
One positive offseason headline, Puka Nacua challenge. That would be something. But other than that, pretty standard first round here with the Brock Bowers tight end premium thing noted. Let's get into round 2 here, which also was pretty interesting. Starts off with Drake London, Eric Froton, our college fantasy football lead analyst, went Saquon Barkley, Drake London on the turn there. Then Justin Jefferson, I took Trey McBride. Producer Colin follows that up immediately with Colson Loveland. Ben on our editorial team takes Tyler Warren right away. So we're going tight end heavy here. Then it's Ashton Jeanty, Kenneth Walker to you, Amarian Hampton, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, George Pickens. I think the interesting thing to talk about is this 3 tight end grouping here. Obviously, look, not everybody watching this video or listening to this is going to play tight end premium. Totally understand that. So in just a regular sense, Josh, how much of a gap do you think exists, if at all, between Trey McBride, Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren?
Great question. Like, this is the bulk of the show, I feel like, is this run of tight ends, because once the second one goes, it's almost like the floodgates are going to open in your tight end premium league. I am like you, that where he normally goes around the 212 with Trey McBride is way too rich for me. I mean, for one thing, Matt, I think he ran 120 more routes than the next closest tight end last season. That is over 3 games worth, basically, of extra time played he had. Like, that is
I think he's got a 60 route lead between him and the number 2 just overall route player last year, which was his teammate Michael Wilson, just to put that into context.
So that's nuts. That is not going to happen again, even if this team, is going to go 3-14. Like, I just do not see them passing at the exact same rate where they were, last in neutral. Last in neutral dropback rate. I should say highest in neutral. I never know how to do that when they're on the polar rates. You know what I'm saying?
I gotcha.
I just don't think he can repeat what he did last year. Now, with that said, in this format, it gets interesting, right? Like, it's so difficult to rewire my brain where this scoring, despite being lower on him, how much does that matter in comparison to the Ken Walker III, Chase Brown, Omari and Hampton tier that I absolutely love? And then you get to, like, I actually like Colson Loveland and am more optimistic about him just overall when I get him in round 3. But immediately taking him to the 204 and the 205, Matt, I would love your piece on this. Like, is that just, hey, I'm scared, terrified to leave without a tight end? Or is it warranted that these 3 guys should be ahead of legit options that might score 20 or 21 fantasy points per game at the running back position?
Well, I'll tell you, just from the perspective of taking Trey McBride, it was a little bit of that fear-based, not wanting to be caught up in the run here, because I actually am okay, just from a redraft standpoint. I have Colson Loveland in the same tier as Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. Right. I mean, I think he absolutely can. So I was, it's aggressive to go right away into that and not wanting to miss out on it. The Warren pick was the one where I kind of was scratching my head a little bit, because I think there's a teardrop between Loveland, Warren, and all of those other guys. I still am pretty high on Tyler Warren overall. I have him 46th overall, which is just right in line with his overall Yahoo ADP 47th in a traditional format. So I'm in line with ADP. I'm just kind of ahead of ADP on Colson Loveland, essentially, who is a 40th overall player in Yahoo ADP this week. I think that the Trey McBride thing is like, there is regression baked into it overall. Like, even where he goes in a typical league, Josh, like 26th overall, there's some regression already baked into that cost, but maybe not enough. But in this format in particular, where I think he's going to rack up receptions, I'm okay with taking him in this spot. And I think it just ultimately... Yeah, clearly. I mean, listen, bud, just because I did something doesn't mean I'm okay with it. That is a theme in these mock drafts here overall, but I'm good with him here at this spot. The other 2 guys, I'm probably more partial to Colson Loveland as a second round pick as opposed to Tyler Warren.
So here's my thing. I truly do believe, and even if I'm not drafting a ton of Ashton Shinty this season for what I previously mentioned, because he typically goes in round 1, I'm not ending up with him. I still think that, like, Shinty, Ken Walker, Omari and Hampton, Chase Brown have, like, league winning upside. Again, when you get to, like, wins above replacement and all this type of stuff, it's all the backs that get 20 or 21 half PPR points per game. Christian McCaffrey did it last year, and he was like 3 wins above replacement. I mean, that takes you to a 9-5 season versus a 5 or 6 and whatever season, right? It gives you 3 extra wins. So my point in that is, I just don't know how I can take these tight ends ahead of those guys when I feel like they have that potential. I hear you on Trey McBride and how he's so much of a figurehead in this offense. I will add, I am nervous going from Drew Petzing, who is from the Kevin Stefanski and Norv Turner tree, to now Mike LaFleur, who is good. Like, I know you are Cardinals curious, maybe to your detriment. And I love Colson Loveland. I can easily make the case that Colson Loveland is going to outproduce Trey McBride this year. I mean, Colson Loveland moves like a wide receiver. How he got 10 plus targets in, like, the final 4 games. They can build the passing game around him. And I actually love Tyler Warren. I was hoping to get Tyler Warren in round 3 in this format, and him going at 205 blew my brain. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of breaking my brain because in no other circumstance am I clicking Trey McBride in the second round. That's my thing here. So it's a little bit tough to defend it generally. I think ultimately, just again, if in the tight end premium format where you're getting the extra bonus at the tight end spot and for any tight ends overall, I'm just really not trying to get into my third tier of tight ends, which for me is, Harold Fanning, Kyle Pitts, they're fine, but I'm more comfortable taking Trey McBride in round 2 and sacrificing at the running back, for me, 2 spot and maybe some early round receivers, as opposed to what I'm sacrificing later on. I will get to where these other tight ends go. I just felt the bonus there boosted it for the tight ends, but make no mistake, I am nervous about McBride. Like, I am much more in a traditional league, much more willing to take both of the Cardinals receivers at, or for Michael Wilson, even above his ADP, as opposed to taking Trey McBride where he goes. So any kind of, go ahead.
Final point on this. You and I are both in on Trey McBride as a round 2 pick in tight end premium. Like, how early, if you were at the turn, let's say you were at 112, 201, would you have taken Trey McBride ahead of Drake London or Justin Jefferson?
No. Probably not.
So this is kind of the tier break for you. It was between Jefferson and like this glut of running backs. Okay. And then I guess my next point is Colson Loveland should also be a round 2 pick, but maybe for me, it would have been after these running backs, or do you think it should have been right next to Trey McBride?
I think I would have taken Ashton Genty and Kenneth Walker, who I have as my running backs 7 and 8. I think I would have had them ahead. Actually, I think I would have also, by the way, this is where I wanted to talk to you about Kenneth Walker. I think I might have taken Derrick Henry ahead of Colson Loveland.
Okay.
And I think I probably would. I still have Derrick Henry ranked as my running back. Excuse me. I have Walker 9 and Derrick Henry running back 8. I just see no reason why like Derrick Henry, other than his age, is going to fall off. Like, there's no indication that the team is expecting it, that there's no indication statistically last year. I think he is my favorite second round pick this year because it's just, he fits every format. If you went receiver in the first round, you can get a guy that, I mean, again, other than I realize like the slow wheels of time stop for no one. And yet this guy is built different, than every other human being that's played his position.
He's an alien
in NFL history. And the team, I like the way the offense sets up. Again, I think he didn't show any signs of decline last year. So to me, he's a guy that I would have maybe taken above Colson Loveland as well.
Can I give you one crazy stat? It's obviously from the great Rich Rebar. For Derrick Henry, only 9 other players in NFL history have as many seasons with double-digit touchdowns. And here's the nuttiest part. If he does it again, which, by the way, he had 16 touchdowns last year, so he should get double-digit ones again if he stays healthy. He joins a group of only Jerry Rice, LaDainian Tomlinson, Emmitt Smith, and Randy Moss to do it that many times. I mean, that's some of the Mount Rushmore players in NFL history, and then we add Derrick Henry onto that group. I mean, the only reason I have Ken Walker ahead is I actually think K9 is going to be used more in the passing game this year, and Derrick Henry is still, despite as much as I love him, kind of still a 0 in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I have him Henry 13th overall and Walker 14th overall, so it is splitting hairs to me, and I buy the narrative on the passing game usage as well for Kenneth Walker, which is a big reason why he's been like a guy that I'm in line with him as a second round pick here. Anything else in the second round stand out to you, or should we hit the third round?
Yeah, I mean, if we both believe that Trey McBride and Colson Loveland should be round 2 players, does that mean Tyler Warren, who I actually think is going to inherit a lot of the Michael Pittman stuff that has gone, if we talk about RPOs and glance routes and all that type of stuff, when you go back and watch this Colts offense, when they need an easy button, when they need the split flow action or off play action or any of that stuff, Tyler Warren, and he also might be like their best screen receiver. Like, I think Shane Steichen loves dialing up specific plays to Tyler Warren. And I am extremely optimistic about Tyler Warren this year. But I think even in tight end premium, the earliest I would probably take him is like the 301, like the 25th overall player. So this was a bit of a reach, but at the same time, you can talk me into Alec Pierce missing time, Josh Downs not being a great outside wide receiver, maybe if they sign Keenan Allen or not, and like Tyler Warren is the number 1 pass catcher for this team on a team that, I trust Shane Steichen and him putting up yards and points out there on any given week.
I'm with you on Tyler Warren and his usage. Again, stat from yesterday's show with Nate. He had 406 yards on play action last year to Tyler Warren, which is number one among all tight ends. There is definitely an argument that they're going to be, I think it's almost certain they're going to be a worse offense than what they were.
They were number one with Daniel Jones when he was
exactly.
there.
They were on a historic pace. So things might not just be running as pure with the Colts this year, which again can impact a guy like Tyler Warren in that play action usage, but I think you're kind of too far in the weeds if you're docking Warren at all because of that. He's an ascendant young player, a lot of easy button touches. I think you could honestly make an argument, Josh, in the full point PPR for the tight ends, and they're the only ones getting it. He could scam his way to a lot of usage there as well and be a pretty good pick. Apparently, a lot of the YouTube comments are saying we are sleeping on Devon Achane. I mean, I'm kind of just fine with where Achane goes. He is the 18th overall player in Yahoo Drafts this week. 18th overall in my rankings, 17th in Yahoo Drafts this week. So I'm kind of fine where he goes. I'm not saying fade him in the second round. He's just somebody more like I'll let the board dictate it to me as opposed to going over the skis for him. Yeah.
So last year, Devon Achane was my favorite round 2 pick. Like I loved him, relentlessly drafting him. So it hurts for me to have him 18th overall, even if it's right in line with ADP, because I actually think he is one of the more unheralded superstars in the league. Like people view him as maybe just a out in space speed back, but you watch the Dolphins and he is breaking and running between the tackles at a high rate. My thing comes down to Malik Willis. Like Malik Willis had the highest scramble rate in the league when he was with the Green Bay Packers. He only targeted running backs 10% of the time with the Green Bay Packers. We know Devon Achane was 4th in targets per game last year and 4th in receiving yards per game in a Mike McDaniel offense, that has done fantastic work with running backs over the last 3 or 4 years. So as much as I love Achane as an individual talent, I do think that this environment is different. Even if the offensive line has improved, I think being attached to, Bobby Slowick and Malik Willis, who I like as a fantasy pick, but I just don't know if from a receiving standpoint if he's going to be friendly here to Devon Achane, because that is a significant part of Achane's value for me.
Yeah, and just the Tua part of this can't be. He's going from the polar extreme here of Correct. A guy that was so check down sensitive and so check down heavy to Malik Willis, who likely when they get into those fourth quarter trailing situations is just going to take off running. Now, I think there's a lot of appeal to Achane overall, and this offensive line, if it comes together, especially that left side, could really be pretty formidable. And Bobby Slowick was on staff last year, so hopefully he's not just going to come in here and think, well, the one thing we got to do is really remake this run game completely after we were doing some pretty good stuff at the end of last year. So again, I think we're in line with ADP on Achane as kind of a second round pick, but someone that we're going to kind of let the board fall to us here. And by the way, when you're taking 3 tight ends in the second round, which is abnormal, I understand it's just the difference between the two formats here. You got to kind of remember that as you're looking at the overall board here. All right, let's take our first quick break. When we come back on the other side, we continue to go round by round here through our most recent mock draft. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we're back. Josh, let's get into the third round here. Spoiler alert, folks. I think this is a pretty inoffensive round to me.
Yeah.
not a lot of nits to pick on this one. It goes Breece Hall at the first pick, AJ Brown, Kyron Williams, Nico Collins, Jeremiah Love, Malik Neighbors, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, Josh Allen, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, Javonte Williams. Not a lot to get offended by here. As I mentioned, a lot of good football players here in the third round, Josh.
Okay, can I pick one nit then? In
pick it.
Your usual redraft league, you never, ever, despite how good Josh Allen is, in one quarterback leagues want to be like the first quarterback off the board because your team, you just like feel worse about it, right? Especially when you draft with like, these other riders because they just like push quarterbacks down. So for producer Colin to select Josh Allen, 33rd overall here, and also a tight end premium when we also are going to value that position probably more than quarterback 2. That's some early stuff.
Yeah. Here's the thing. 2 things, actually. One, Welcome to Yahoo, Josh. It's kind of a tradition here on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. Pretty much, if you're going to do a mock draft recap and you're not going to take a couple shots at producer Colin's team,
right? He deserves
really
it.
Not. He deserves it. You're really not doing it right. Secondly, I've said this a lot during the course of the show so far. The worst thing that you can do this year is take 2 onesie positions early, and he obviously took Colson Loveland, even in a tight end premium. Fine. Second round, Colson Loveland. Okay. Then followed up with the 3rd round, Josh Allen. You're going to pay for it later. Okay. And guess what? Producer Colin is going to pay for it later. I'll give him credit. Rounds out his, receiver room pretty nicely. We'll get into that. But the running back 2 spot is beyond problematic. So you're going to pay for it.
It would not shock me at all, Matt, if producer Colin has his own full screen graphic of his team that we'll probably look at a bit later on. Wouldn't shock me at all. But yeah, you pay for it when you take and I like Colson Loveland and I like Josh Allen. It just, you can't do both in back-to-back rounds and feel great about your roster at this point. Cause like you and I both took quarterbacks a bit later on, and we can paint a pathway and paint a picture of, oh yeah, that guy's going to be a top 5 quarterback on top of this too.
Yeah, tough scene for Colin, but he'll get him next time, maybe. All right, the other intriguing pick, Josh, in the 3rd round, though, is you with Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 11. It feels like it's just a weekly kind of, maybe not even weekly, like bi-weekly, tri-weekly update about like as Neighbors turns. He didn't participate today, but today, August 13th, he's out with the non-contact jersey in team drills. So Josh, Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 11 over, some pretty good players here. Thoughts on taking Neighbors in the 3rd round? Where are you at?
Well, it's been an odyssey with my Malik Neighbors opinion this summer. I mean, he's started off not good, reading the tea leaves, where, you have the surgery last year, then you have the cleanup surgery because rehab was not going great. Every beat writer was using the dreaded 3 letters of the PUP, the PUP list. And then, in late July, we get one weekend where all the beats say, well, actually, he's going to avoid the PUP list. And actually, he's going to be out there in the first day of practice. So it's one of those things, Matt, that, you and I create too much content. And so I feel for the people that tuned into some episodes in late June where I was like, hey, it's bad for Malik Neighbors. And then tuned in early August where I was like, actually, it's great for Malik Neighbors because it sounds like I'm talking out of 2 sides of my mouth, when in reality, I'm just, catching up to new information and then interpreting that new information and how I would really take and draft these players. So now with Malik Neighbors, I am all the way up at like 24th overall or close to it, if not even higher than that. And so he's just more talented than a lot of these round 3 picks of where he's going on Yahoo right now.
Hard to disagree. He's another guy for me where I just he keeps on going higher and higher. I've got him at 27th overall right now. Can make a strong argument.
22nd overall. 22nd. Wow.
Yeah. Listen, I get it though. And it is a little difficult. It's like I said yesterday, the headline was, well, he didn't participate. And it's like, well, oh my God, did we get a setback? Something like that. It's just going to be a bumpy ride with the Neighbors rankings. It already has been. But yeah, again, I'm looking at him 27th right now. He is in my 2nd tier of receivers. I can make a very strong argument that he checks a lot more boxes than a Chris Olave, a Jalen Waddle, a Devontae Smith. Now, the one thing that I also can't get out of my head, though, can we get one positive update about the Giants offense besides like Neighbors is running? I mean, there has been nothing but, even Matt Nagy's like, wow, Jackson Dart's got to play more on time in the systems. Like, oh my God. Everybody else is just, pushing sunshines and rainbows here in the middle of August, except the Giants.
But I will say, Matt, doesn't that probably affect everyone other than Malik Neighbors? Like, shouldn't that affect people's Isaiah Likely bags or like the Cam Scatterboo versus Tyron Tracy stuff?
Oh, we'll get to Scatterboo. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus Malik Neighbors. And I actually think, the offensive line has been invested into, so maybe it gives them like a platform to have some success every single week. I mean, you had to have the football go in this direction 8, 9, 10 times per game, So
you'd think, but that doesn't always happen that way, my friend. Especially in these like pretty static offenses, like which is what the Chiefs looked like the last few years with Matt Nagy. I just think it's important whenever we do these Okay, well, if he's 90% of himself, then that's cool with me to take him in the third round. And like I said, I'm totally in on him as a third round pick, 27th overall. So I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. But sometimes that 90% of himself, we're doing it from like the best possible outcome when there already might be some dampening going on with that anyways. So I don't know. He's just a tough player to calibrate to because of the injury and because of the changing variables. And I don't have a strong feeling on where I am with Jackson Dart either, which is, again, it's a little difficult in that regard.
Fair. All right. That's it for the third round for me. I'm done.
Yeah, that's it for the first. Same. Again, rest of it pretty unoffensive here. Fourth round gets a little bit more interesting here in the fourth round. It begins with Emeka Ibuka, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Waddle, Lad McConkey, Rashee Rice, Tucker Kraft, Garrett Wilson, Harold Fannin. We got some more tight ends here coming in. We're back on tight end row. Travis Achan, Terry McLaurin, Sam Laporta, and DeAndre Swift. Josh, we got 3 tight ends back here in the mix. It just felt like to me, all the tight ends are basically 2 rounds more expensive than they probably are in a standard draft. So if you're doing tight end premium this year, I think that's how to calibrate to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is notable that, the entire third round was skipped over with tight ends. And then it's then the next person to, pull the lever first. And there it was at 42nd overall with Boone himself with taking Tucker Kraft in this, glut of tight ends that I would say is Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta and Harold Fannin and even Kyle Pitts, who we'll talk about pretty soon here too. So, round 4 this year, no matter what the format is, Matt, I absolutely love it because it's a choose your favorite player, It can be Ibuka. It can be Jalen Waddle. It can be Ladd. It can be Garrett Wilson. But then when you throw tight end premium on it, then you open it up to, again, this group of mid-round tight ends that is, hey, I can make a case for Tucker Kraft being the best yards after catch tight end in the league. And if he's healthy out there in week 1, you're getting a steal here in round 4. Hey, Harold Fannin, he might be, the number 1 pass catcher in a Todd Monken offense. That's pretty sweet. And then actually, I would say, my favorite mid-round tight end this year is Sam Laporta, and that might be controversial.
No, I'm actually with you on that. I have my tight end tiers are my second tier of tight ends is Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Sam Laporta, and I basically kind of flip-flop Kraft and Laporta depending on the day of the week. I really like Sam Laporta. 20% targets per route before he got hurt. He was averaging like second most yards per game on the team. He was the second pass catcher ahead of Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams only broke out in the second half of the season because Sam Laporta got hurt. To me, that is the variable that cleared the way for him. And now he's getting Drew Petzing. I think Sam Laporta here at 4.11 was a great pick. Great pick here by Scott Pianowski. And as you mentioned, Kyle Pitts is going to be the first pick of the 5th round. So you kind of stack these guys up, Laporta, Kraft, Fannin, or what's your order generally for these guys? And throw Kyle Pitts in here too. Like generally, what is your order? Premium, regular league, whatever.
Well, I don't want to reveal too much. I have Kraft and Laporta back-to-back in tight ends and back-to-back overall. And actually, I have a guy that I took a little bit later on right after them, ahead of Harold Fannin and ahead of Kyle Pitts. So maybe we'll save that name until we get to that round.
Okay, great. We will save it there. One of the really intriguing picks to me that I think is an awesome 4th round pick generally, and I was kind of happy to see him go in the 4th round, is DeAndre Swift here. I think Swift is in such a great position this year. I just took him in the 5th round of a different league where it's like a full wide receiver sicko league. So felt pretty good about getting him there. Swift is nobody's like favorite player in the NFL, but Ben Johnson really likes him. The offense is going to be good this year. He's a passing down back. To me, I think he's somebody that gets overthought when we're looking at that. Like, I got to grab a running back 2 zone here. So I like the DeAndre Swift here by your boy Weaves, actually, on this one.
My guy, producer Weaves. If we stack the producers in mock drafts, I know I'm taking Weaves over Colin every single day of the week.
Sadly,
no
yeah. Colin embarrassed the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast in this draft. And the Josh and Hayden show showing out pretty well. So we'll see. We might have to relegate Colin and promote JB or Jung on the next one. But we'll talk about that.
I thought you might say an all producers league to see who the number 1 fantasy footballer is of all the producers at Yahoo. That might be something that we can make content about.
Colin invites me to be in a league, I don't know, every week, and I keep saying no. So we'll see about that. All right. But on a serious note, fourth round, really
let
good
me just talk about Swift
receiver
real
around
quick.
here. Okay.
Can I just talk about Swift? Sorry to derail us. We have a
did.
running joke of, every single Sunday when you're watching football and you're on Twitter, when, Colson Loveland goes off, everyone in all caps says Loveland, or, this year might be Luther Burden. No one ever goes with a Swift because no one cares about DeAndre Swift. When really they should. Like I've never been a DeAndre Swift guy prior to last season, but because like every team he was on got rid of him and improved at that position. Eagles, Lions, but then like when we got to the bye week, it was week 6 and on. You can tell that the Bears like went in the lab and watched. Okay, our best run concepts with DeAndre Swift are this, and it was a lot of stuff to the outside, a lot of pitches, tosses, everything. They even had like Benedette playing left tackle, who's a freak athlete, and they would just get Swift in space, and immediately it went to the moon. It was really great. And I would also say, like the more traditional inside runs, he was probably his best in his NFL career last season than he's ever been. I mean, he produced a run of 10 or more yards on 13.5% of his runs. That was 6th in the league. So you also have the, upside of, okay, what happens if Kamanungai does miss time? What are we going to get out of DeAndre Swift after that? It could be one of the top 12 scoring running backs, because I highly doubt they give Roshan Johnson all of Kamanungai's work if that happens. So if everything stays the same as it was last year, Swift is a good pick here. And then if he goes on to have like a true lead back stuff, then again, you're getting massive, massive value on him.
Massive value. I'm well ahead of consensus on DeAndre Swift from an overall perspective. And a guy I'm really low on relative to overall ADP is Josh Jacobs, the other running back who went in this round. Just to be fair to Colin here, who we've trashed on the show, Josh Jacobs was the pick in the 4th round by our boss, my longtime boss, Jason Klobaka. And sorry, boss man, I thought that was a terrible pick. You can't pay me to take Josh Jacobs in the 4th round. Literally has like every red flag that you possibly could ask for a running back. So I don't care if, no, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't draft. No, thanks. I'll find another player to take in fantasy football this year. And if that comes back to bite me, so be it. I think I'm going to be fine.
Matt, I will be honest. I am the loser, maybe, that is taking a lot of, at this point, with the information that we know, like Josh Jacobs and even some like Rashee Rice right now. But I that is subject to change. And per Kablaka, we update our rankings like every single day. So Jason, you might have a rankings update in your mailbox right after this.
Great. Okay. Well, I guess you're the CLV guy. That's what you're looking for. Is that what the kids say? You're looking for your CLV?
I mean, Josh Jacobs, I will say, yes, it is all opportunity and volume based. It's not like there's a beacon of health of running back 2 behind him. And this
he's not a beacon of health and running back 1. Josh Jacobs is currently injured.
Well, he is currently injured. He has also previously been injured in seasons and still ranks as a top 8 to 10 scorer, even in those situations, because guess what? When they're inside the 10-yard line and they're running the football, who's getting the rock? It is Josh Jacobs. The dude scores a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, you're probably right. I just no thanks. I'll look at the other players on the board for me. But you could be right, Josh. So that's why I like these different perspectives here on the show. Let's get into the 5th round here, which again starts off with Kyle Pitts, Tedero McMillan, Christian Watson, Cam Scatterbood, Luther Burden, Quinshon Judkins, to you, Josh Norris. I like that pick there. David Montgomery, Bashal Tootin, DJ Moore, Bucky Irving to me, Travion Henderson, and Jadarian Price. Big running back round here, which again started off with Kyle Pitts. One pick I did think was interesting, just to actually go to wide receivers here. Christian Watson, wide receiver 23, definitely ahead of his overall ranking, ahead of some other really interesting names. Christian Watson's probably a guy I haven't talked about enough recently. Where are you at with Christian Watson this year, Josh?
I mean, I have him ranked as wide receiver 24. So if he wasn't selected at this 503 spot, if I can remember back to when we did this draft, I think I was hoping to draft Christian Watson as like my flex spot here after, wide receivers earlier. I am in love with Christian Watson. I think people still perceive him as this high variance downfield threat, and that's it. And that his game transformed last year. He evolved. Like, you can look at it from his routes. I think he ran for the first few years of his career 7% out routes, and that jumped up to like 35% last year. He was their go-to player on like 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 6. We fantasize about, hey, these big play downfield catch explosive wide receivers, when in reality we want the gimme guys too. And Christian Watson last year became much more of a gimme guy, and now we get a Packers wide receiver trio instead of a quartet or quintuple or wherever else you go with those numbers. That also him playing the Z, where he's going to get free releases and some movement pre-snap. Like, Christian Watson is one of my favorite wide receiver picks according to their value in all of fantasy football this season.
Yeah, just to put into context some of that improvement that Josh is talking about here. 2023 season, Christian Watson, 70.6% success rate versus zone coverage. This last year, 79.1% success rate versus press in 23, 60%, just shy of 70% this last year. So it was the best season of his career as an individual player. And he came off an ACL in the same calendar season. And your point there about him sticking at Z is so critical to me. Matthew Golden probably going to be not a pure sacrificial X, but he'll do some sacrificial things to allow Christian Watson to do all the fun move around stuff. So, and I actually think Matthew Golden is a fine late round pick. I'm really in on all three of these Packers receivers this year. It's a group that I really want to target. Watson in this range. I probably will just have a couple of guys ranked a little bit ahead of him, but same tier, totally fine with where Christian Watson goes. So I thought he was an interesting pick to highlight because we just haven't talked about him enough on the show. I took Bucky Irving in the 5th round here. Josh,
how do you feel?
I feel good. I'm back on Bucky at this point. I think that a lot of the news that we're getting out of Buck's training camp is that, yes, Kenny Gainwell is going to be the passing down back. He'll be the preferred pass catcher, but they haven't really started to mix him in much as a rusher. I think Sean Tucker is a little bit more of a fantasy Twitter obsession than a real threat in the rushing department. And I just look at this right now where Bucky, and this is why I had to bump him up a tier in my rankings. Where I look at Bucky right now is just, okay, we know there's a good player in there somewhere. We saw it, not even just a good player, a great player in his rookie season. And this is an offense, Josh, that I want to be in on this year. This offensive line is probably a top 5 unit in the NFL. It's healthier this year than it was going into last year. Bucky's healthier than he was last season. Again, I realize that Kenny Gainwell is a threat to the passing game work, but I can also tell myself a story that Kenny Gainwell is a little overrated right now as a pass catcher because he's coming off the Aaron Rodgers check down bonanza. So I don't know. Bucky is a 5th round pick. I've actually kind of really warmed up to him as that running back 2 when I don't get running back 2 early, which is what I'd prefer to do.
He's one of these that I get hot and cold on every single rankings update. I look at it and I think back to that rookie season where he is so good at breaking tackles. I mean, despite his size, he really is a between the tackles runner that if you give him the second level, then he forces, defenders in the opposite direction for a step, then cuts off of him. And then, hey, if you're reaching for a tackle, he's just breaking it. And then he gets the second and third level. At the same time, that was a Liam Cohen rushing game versus now a Zach Robinson one. And we have seen that Liam Cohen rushing attacks are fantasy darlings. And with Zach Robinson, he had Bijan Robinson. And even some of that was hit or miss some weeks, right? Because of the tight end to tight end blocking. So I really like Bucky. And I am totally with you that this Bucs offensive line has a chance of being a top 5 unit. It's just this high variance-ness I get with the Bucs right now, where it's a hot and cold, and we're going to go on these streaks where Baker and company plays maybe a top 5 unit, and then when it's bad, it's real rough. But at the same time, we're not talking about your running back 1; we're talking about your running back 2, and this is a whole round of running back 2s.
Yeah. A lot of running back 2s. Bashal Tutin, Jadarian Price, very interesting players here. Travion Henderson. Anything, just real quick before we go to break, anyone here that you look at from a running back standpoint and you're just kind of on the whole thing?
No, I can make a case on literally all of them. It's weird. I'm a big Travion Henderson guy, and we have a show coming out tonight talking about the players that Hayden and I just compiled together are most different at running back than where they're being drafted. And Hendo is where we're most negative. And it's just because he's drafted as the Patriot starter and he's not the Patriot starter. It's it really is that simple. And no doubt when he is the starter for the team, if something happens to Ramondre, he is fast enough and that offense is good enough for him to have and like scores one of the top running backs in a 6, 7, 8 week span like he did last year. But just simply put, going into the season, he's probably not going to be the one that touches the ball first or starts in that first series. And so it's kind of odd to me that he is being the first one selected of that group.
Yeah, Stevenson should be ranked and drafted ahead of Travion Henderson, but he probably won't be. So I think that's a good place to profit if people agree with that. All right, we are going to take another quick break. We come back. We get into the 6th round, 7th round, the 8th round. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we're back. Let's get into the 6th round here. General take as we look at this round, the wide receivers are way better than the running backs in this round. Other than Ramondre Stevenson, who we just talked about,
Yep.
This is when you're getting into like it's Tony Pollard and Jalen Warren o'clock, which you better not be, you better not be taking your running back 2 in this round. But here's how it goes: Jameson Williams, Lamar Jackson, Rome Odunze, Parker Washington, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, George Kittle, Carnell Tate, Jaden Daniels, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren. This was the guy you were hinting at earlier, Josh. You took George Kittle at the 6.0, the 6.7 pick. Talk us through George Kittle. Where are you at?
I think George Kittle, as soon as he is cleared, which it sounds like from Matt Zenitz and a few other people, he is on track to do, he's immediately going to climb a full round. And I get it. I mean, he's coming off an Achilles. He's over 30 years of age. Matt, I would say he kind of fits in that Derrick Henry freak profile of, oh yeah, this is like a one-of-one specimen who is now on an offense that there are a lot of question marks around. Like, we know Mike Evans is going to miss 4 games because of hamstring. I don't want to be that flippant about it, but that's just where he's at this age. They've lost Ricky Pearsall and now have Debo, who will be a declining player as the season goes along. And then while I am optimistic in comparison to market on DeJon Stribling, what if George Kittle is the most dependable pass catcher out there for a number of games? And he's not being selected as that on many, many platforms. Again, he's going after Harold Fannin and Kyle Pitts, who are going to be in worse offenses than the San Francisco 49ers. So I am loving that I was able to scoop, to me, value in tight end premium in the 6th round here.
Yeah, it's just tough. Obviously, he's a older player with an Achilles injury, allegedly the good kind of Achilles tear, which I didn't realize was a thing. But we'll see how it goes, man. He's a freak athlete. That's what freak athletes do. They buck trends. So I'm totally fine with you kind of grouping him in here. A real value in the 6th round for sure. I have him in the same tier as Fannin and Pitts. So I'm with you on that one from just a draft value perspective. The other pick I think that's interesting in the 6th round here, Jaden Daniels. Are we still taking Jaden Daniels this high after the Laramie Tunsil injury? He was a very popular submission for our fantasy hotline segment later on, which we are going to get into at the end of the show.
Yeah, I don't know if you can. He's kind of being grouped in that quarterback 3 range, quarterback 4 with Joe Burrow, and you get into another tier after that. Laramie Tunsil was big, not just physically, but also big for this offense, in that you could just keep him on an island and then ask your 4 other offensive linemen to block 3 other pass rushers. And that's it. Life's easy for you. Protection packages are easy for you. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Are they moving Brandon Coleman to left tackle? Are they moving Josh Connolly over to left tackle? I'm sure that they have figured it out. I haven't yet. It's just a downgrade, no matter what, you know? So, Laramie Tunsil during his final year of Houston, I was a bit concerned by, and so were they. But this past season, he was freaking excellent. So, we know that underperforming teams based on expectation, almost always it's because offensive line injuries or just poor talent. And you hate to see your best offensive lineman go down before week 1. And that is what happened here with the Commanders.
Moving into round 7 for us here begins with DK Metcalf, Brian Thomas Jr., Joe Burrow, Jordan Tyson, who picked up a little bit of a hamstring injury today. Never love to see that.
Not what you want to hear.
Not what you want to hear with Jordan Tyson. Chuba Hubbard, another guy that picked up a hamstring injury here, which we'll talk about more of that in just a moment, because it went Chuba Hubbard, Marvin Harrison Jr., to yourself, Josh Norris. Then Justin Boone puts his money where his mouth is. Earlier this week, he says, hey, I'm gone ahead and moved Jonathan Brooks ahead of Chuba Hubbard in my rankings. He takes Chuba Hubbard. at the 7th pick in the 7th round. That's going to go ahead and be consensus from now on at this point. Chris Godwin goes off the board, J.K. Dobbins, Rico Dowdle, Stephon Diggs, Michael Wilson. So we see the Jonathan Brooks pick here after Chuba Hubbard. That will not be for much longer, Josh Norris, that Jonathan Brooks goes behind Chuba Hubbard.
No, not at all. And, this is one where we've had people like Cam Wolf, who are close to the Panthers organization, say, hey, word behind the scenes is if Jonathan Brooks stays healthy, then they expect him to basically take over that running back one job. Like, he is the most talented back in that room. Has that just been fast tracked now? Like, if he is the one that is healthy heading into week 1, and while Chuba Hubbard, according to Dave Canales, is going to play in week 1, we know these things don't always go correctly. And Jonathan Brooks, is he the one who's going to touch the football first? And if he does that just mean a much larger workload? Like, is he the player? And Hayden and I just talked about this for our show tonight, on an offense that when they're good at rushing the ball, which they have been at times over the last few years, and even when they're not, they're still just going to run the football. Like, they will run into walls over and over and over again. And he's a really, really fun talent. So I guess my question to you, Matt, to put you on the spot, if you said to yourself, no matter what, I want to exit my draft with Jonathan Brooks, where would you take him?
Well, I can just tell you from an ADP perspective, I have been like 20 plus spots ahead of overall ADP on Jonathan Brooks for a while now. I am ranked. I still haven't like fully adjusted to this whole news just yet. I've had him as like my 79th overall player. Last week I had him as my 86th, so I did bump him up a little bit in after the injury news today. I mean, yeah, I think you have to take him like in the early 7th round, which feels super uncomfortable because, I mean, when he was a round 10 pick, I was like, oh yeah, baby, sign yourself up for that every single day. I felt comfortable before this taking him in the 8th round because you just look at the rest of the running back board, Josh. It's like we're taking J.K. Dobbins here. Rico Dowdle is the guy that I took in this round. It's like, okay, like it's like a floor bet maybe. There just aren't that many other ceiling bets available at the running back position.
Totally.
And I get obviously the risk with Jonathan Brooks is like he doesn't play a single snap. He has 12 rush attempts in his entire career. I get the risk on that. But, here in the 7th round, if you are looking for running backs, I think it's a team sensitive build, Josh, is kind of the thing. But yeah, I'm comfortable taking him in the 7th round.
So on July 6th, Hayden and I did our running back sleeper show. And for us, that is always, hey, you have to be pick 120 and later. Jonathan Brooks at that time on Yahoo was pick 124. And so that shows you, yesterday's price is not today's price. And even like recently, he's been going around 103 overall on Yahoo in the 9th round. I think his ADP just flat out flips Chuba Hubbard, where Chuba would now be a 9th round pick. Jonathan Brooks would now be a 6-7 turn player. But again, for you people at home, if you want to exit your draft with him no matter what, I mean, Matt, is the absolute highest you would go like where you took Bucky Irving? I don't know if anyone's going to feel that positive about Jonathan Brooks, but there's going to be someone out there saying, hey, I want to get my guy. But that would then be ahead of, Trevion, Ramondre, and even like moving up the board. Like, could you even consider him in the Dave Montgomery territory? Is that just like way too rich?
I think that might be too rich just because Chuba's still going to play a role. Yeah, I think that's too rich for me. By the way, it's so funny you mentioned like flipping the ADPs. I'm looking at my last week ranking for Chuba Hubbard was 79th. My this week ranking for Jonathan Brooks is 79th. And my current ranking for Chuba Hubbard is 103rd. My last week last week's ADP for Jonathan Brooks, 104th. So yeah, I'm in on that. Just flip it. I think that's the right way to go. But I have a feeling it's going to get more expensive than that, which is where it'll get a little bit hairy when we're talking about him versus some of those other running back 2 candidates. But we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to speed through some of the later rounds before we get into your questions for the fantasy hotline. We will get into that right after this. All right, we're back. We get into round 8 here. Starts off with Kyle Monangai, Blake Corum, Drake May, RJ Harvey, Dalton Kincaid, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Alec Pierce, Isaiah Likely, Josh Downs, Travis Kelce, and rounds out with Dak Prescott. We continue to see just quarterback value in these next 2 rounds is going to be great. Some of that's, just pushing it down because of the tight ends and everything, but just, man, try to wait on quarterback this year. You might get surprised and you might get Drake May in the 8th round like I did here. Before I throw it to you, Josh, for your reaction, I want to note this is where Colin paid for the sins of his onesie positions earlier, because in the last round, I mentioned that J.K. Dobbins, someone took him at 7.9. That someone was producer Colin, who also took R.J. Harvey at 8.4.
He has double Broncos backfield?
Yeah, it's just...
Matt,
I don't know, bro.
When Colin produces these shows, does he just mute you? Like, does he listen? Like,
I don't know,
he
man.
probably consumes more fantasy football content than 99.9% of people out there, and yet he just took double Broncos backfield.
Before we were doing these shows live every day, he would have to listen to the pod and then edit it afterwards. Like you basically have to listen to it probably about 3 times. Just an editing process. Maybe we need to get him back to that so that he can really get back on the horse here. And I think we might need to have him listen to the shows 3 times.
Maybe he's a physical learner where he needs to transcribe the entire episode by hand to really have it register. Maybe that's how this works.
Yeah, we're losing recipes, man. It's a shame. Okay, all right. Anything else about the 8th round stand out to you here? I actually would say Dalton Kincaid, 8th round pick. I dig the 8th round Dalton Kincaid. I'm kind of in on Dalton Kincaid this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're talking Kincaid versus Kelsey and Isaiah Likely, like Kincaid to me has a higher ceiling than all of those. Now he hasn't been able to stay on the field because of health, and then he also hasn't been able to stay on the field because he can't block. There's Dawson Knox and Jackson Halls ahead of him in that department. But at the same time, as you know, the underlying metrics are extremely kind to Dalton Kincaid in terms of the targets and yards per route run, and that's even more important to people than actual fantasy points.
I've heard. Yeah. If you can win your yards per route run league, if you can win your yards per route run and your reception perception do you even really need to win the actual fantasy league? Apparently that's what producer Colin is trying to do with the Lad McConkey, DJ Moore, Parker Washington run there. So we'll see. The yards per route run from week 15 on. That's looking pretty good for the Parker Washington 6th round pick, which I did like, Colin, by the way. Just so we don't.
I love Parker Washington this year.
Yeah, so we're not accused of cyberbullying of producer Colin. I like the 6th round. The receivers were good, but come on, both Broncos running backs. Be serious here. What is this, 2005? Okay, round
Sean
9
Payton doesn't even want both Broncos running backs.
No, he looked at that RJ Harvey pick. Is like, I don't know about that, Colin. Yikes. Anyways, okay, round 9 here begins with Quentin Johnson, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Mason, Dallas Goedert, Caleb Williams, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt to you, Mekhi Lemon, Jackson Dart, Jaden Reed, Chris Rodriguez, Mark Andrews, and Jake Ferguson. Josh, what are your takeaways from this round?
So when we get to this territory, I would actually consider, if I already had my tight end 1, to maybe take some of these tight ends and throw them in my flex for tight end premium. Because I think there's a chance that those guys outscore some of the wide receivers just straight up with this format. And, Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, all have a chance of doing that. Like Mark Andrews has a clear pathway of being the, second target funnel in his offense behind Zay Flowers. Dallas Goedert has that chance, behind Devontae Smith with, the Dontavian Wicks, Mekhi Lemons of the world. And the counter they had to the tush push last year was, let's just shovel it to Dallas Goedert near the goal line and have him score touchdowns. And then, Jake Ferguson, while he's the 3rd and sometimes 4th, because our guy Ryan Flournoy plays football, down the seam, he's an awesome target and a very, very high scoring in Nate Tice's number 1 projected offense for the Cowboys. So I think that's a strategy component to consider here for tight end premium.
Yeah, no, I think it totally makes sense there. Yeah, the Dallas Goedert stuff, maybe Kevin Patullo, kind of didn't do such a great job with everything else because he was so busy designing up plays for Dallas Goedert, because those plays were cooking. Everything else for the Eagles last year, maybe not so much. So yeah, Dallas Goedert, I like that pick there. I wish the vibes were better on Mark Andrews. I mean, he did a great video announcing our tight end premium,
How dare
video.
You?
That was awesome.
You?
I mean, that was awesome, but I wish I was getting like, man, it looks like it's Andrew's season again from training camp, but I guess maybe everybody.
Who other season can it be for that tight end room? They're all gone.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Not only
Matthew Hibner. Is it Matthew Hibner season?
Kolar, Isaiah Likely, and even Patrick Ricard are all gone. So we can't do this funny business of, hey, is it a Mark Andrews week? It just better be a Mark Andrews week, or else the Ravens are struggling this year.
Last note on this round 2. Those running backs, Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, who you took, Jordan Mason, those are guys I've bumped up my rankings to just try to get them inside the top 100. If you're looking for those running backs at this point in the draft, I like both of those guys here. Chris Rodriguez, too, he's actually one of the guys when I filter, like, who am I highest on relative to ADP, is Chris Rodriguez, which is weird because I'm actually, as I'll talk about in the mailbag segment, I'm also kind of a Bajal Tootin guy, but it's just one of those, hey, try to get an ambiguous backfield, and Rodriguez is many rounds cheaper than Bajal Tootin. But we'll talk more about that when we get into the hotline segment. Let's just quickly look through rounds 10 to 15. One notable thing here in round 10 was just like, this is wide receiver sleeper season here in the 10th round. And I'm kind of curious if any of these guys stand out to you. Jaden Higgins, Rashad White, Michael Pittman, Jalen Coker, Kenny Gainwell, Jonah Coleman, Jordan Addison, Chig Okonkwo, Matthew Golden, Cortland Sutton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Romeo Dobbs. So it's a mix of like interesting young sleepers, boring, hope you get some value, veteran picks. Anyone here you really want to make a case for?
I mean, to be honest, a lot of them. The wide receiver show that we did comparing our rankings to ADP, there's 2 of them in this group, and that's Jalen Coker and Jordan Addison. Really like him. And I'm the opposite, and it's Cortland Sutton. We're kind of negative. We're the inverse. We're much lower on him compared to where he's going. Addison, I think, is a big one because I think people just are underestimating how much of a bounce back this Vikings offense can have. Because it was 26th in scoring last year. I mean, the year before that, they were 9th. With KOC calling plays in 2022, that they were 8th. And so while Jordan Addison has always been that bit of a roller coaster wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, you're not drafting him anywhere close to that. In fact, you're drafting him in like deep wide receiver 4 territory as wide receiver 45. And I love that here. This is an offense that scored a bunch of points. He was a wide receiver 28 in points per game in 2023 with Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, and Josh Dobbs. And then was the wide receiver 21 in points per game with Sam Darnold in 2024. So I expect him to be back in like that wide receiver 35-ish range. And that can only climb with, other wide receivers getting injured.
Yeah, I'm skeptical on Jordan Addison as a player and skeptical on the Kyler Murray experience. So I'm just kind of in line with ADP on Jordan. Well, actually, I'm in line with him positionally. Wide receiver, I have him wide receiver 45, but I also have him from an overall ADP perspective, like 14 spots higher than that, because I think this is a good range to be taking all of these receivers. Like, listen, I love Jalen Coker, which credit to producer Colin, that was his pick. He's clearly trying to get in the good graces here.
He only watches the Coker segments.
That's it. Clearly, he actually went to high school with Jalen Coker, so he knew Jalen Coker existed before I did. So there you go. But look at that. Yeah, so it's a good round to be taking these sleepers. I like Jaden Higgins as well. I mean, he's another guy I'm higher on relative to ADP. So yeah, it's just a good spot to be taking these younger guys as opposed to, for me, Cortland Sutton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Like you know what you're getting there. I took Michael Pittman, so I'm kind of being a hypocrite here on this one.
So what does Kenny Gainwell bring you in this round? Like Kenny Gainwell is just going to be a pass catcher, and that's it.
You're trying to do the PPR scam and a half PPR league. Like he's a guy that I've bumped down my rankings, especially because I'm getting higher on Bucky Irving, because it sounds like he's just going to be like kind of a role player as a passing down guy. So yeah, to me, Gainwell, not somebody I'm super thrilled about unless it's full PPR. You're starting multiple flexes and you're just kind of looking to fill one of those spots. But let's take our last break here. I don't think there's any reason to do a big breakdown on the round 12 picks. When people start getting into, it is what it is. Because we have a really good bunch of discussions to have in our fantasy hotline segment. We will get into that right after this. All right, we are back and welcome to the Fantasy Hotline presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL. Every Thursday, we are taking your most pressing questions for the Fantasy Hotline. And today, I asked you all, on social media, okay? For who are the players that you have dropped the most in your fantasy rankings based on what you've seen or heard out of training camp the last couple of weeks, and why? Some really good submissions here. I do want to try to hit all of them. We'll see. Josh and I are, talkers, so we'll see if we can get it done here. First one comes in from at NFL_T Strack. Tom Strachan.
Our guy, T Strack.
Our guy. Yeah, T Strack, baby. Let's go. Okay, here we go. Bashal Tutin. He's willing to be wrong on him, but the cost doesn't math with the reports. Josh, based on the training camp reports, Bashal Tutin never going to catch a pass because LaQuint Allen is the pass catching back. And he's never going to score a touchdown because Chris Rodriguez is the goal line back. So no catches, no touchdowns for Bashal Tutin. Are you knocking him in your rankings?
No, I'm still like running back 25-ish with Bashal Tutin. I still see like a pathway map for him to be a league winner. What if he is the guy? Like, what if Chris Rodriguez, if he's the one standing in your way to being the top runner in a Liam Cohen offense? Like, I kind of want to take that bet every single time, And so,
yeah,
look, I understand some of the negatives here with Bashal Tutin, and I understand when Liam Cohen gets on a mic, and the dude loves to talk now. He and James Gladstone loves a podcast interview. And he says like, what we're hunting up now is 4, 6, 8, 10-yard gains. Like, to me, that's selling it a bit short. And like, all we want is efficiency. And Chris Rodriguez brings that. Well, every metric that you look at where C-Rod is efficient, about 5 spots behind right there is Bashal Tutin. So I know that's a small sample that we're talking about here, and he didn't play for Liam Cohen at Kentucky. But again, if Chris Rodriguez is the thing that's standing in my way from Bashal Tutin being like this year's Travis Etienne or this year's Bucky Irving that Liam Cohen coached, I want to take that wager every single time of where he's going in drafts right now.
I want to take it ahead of where he's going in drafts right now. I have him ranked ahead of ADP. And it's so funny. Like, he's the first Jacksonville Jaguar off the board in the 6th round of Yahoo drafts. And this is an offense we all expect to be good. It's just the ambiguity in the receiver room and in the backfield is combining to, by the way, I think just kind of lead you back to Trevor Lawrence. I wrote about that in my draft day blueprint piece, which is going to come out, I think, early next week, where it's why I keep drafting Trevor, because he's the one who's going to be distributing the football to all these pass catchers. But yeah, I mean, I'm ahead of consensus on a lot of these Jags guys, including Bashal Tutin. Yep. And to your point, Josh, like, what if Chris Rodriguez misses time? Like, then Bashal Tutin turns into like a turbo smash, because when you look at just where he, like the backs that he goes around, it's the players we talk about, like the Quinshon Judkins, the Cam Scadaboos, and all that. It's like, I have much more faith in the Jacksonville Jaguars ecosystem. So it's not a perfect run out for sure, but I also kind of think we're overthinking the LaQuint Allen passing down back of this all too. Like, yeah, he's a long down and distance guy, not a screen pass catcher and stuff like that.
This is something where, the report came out with Alvin Kamara that he's going to own 3rd and 4th downs, and Travis Etienne's going to own 1st and 2nd downs. And people freaked out as if then Etienne's not going to, catch any passes. When in reality, when you look back at it last year, 35 of the 36 receptions that Travis Etienne had were on 1st and 2nd down. Like that. Yeah, that's when the vast majority of these receptions do happen for these running backs. So yeah, I misspoke. I'm well ahead of market on Bashal Tutin. I have him as running back 22 right now.
All right, next one comes in from Ames Clarkson. Rashee Rice. This is definitely a quote, watch the tape take, but every camp clip I see out of him looks brutal. No separation, no juice, nothing that makes me feel good about paying his price. Meanwhile, Cyrus Allen is out there gliding. I've moved Rice down. Maybe camp clips burn me, but my eyes are screaming at me right now. Not really a watch the tape take, like a watch the Twitter clips take here from Clarkson. How are you feeling about your boy Rashee Rice? Your guy. Josh Norris.
Whoa!
I mean, first show you and I did together as Yahoo colleagues. You're telling me I want to draft all the Rashee Rice. I've drafted a bunch of Rashee Rice. I'm like, have fun with that, pal. I believe is what I said to you. Are you having fun, Josh?
Never, ever do I want to be known as the Rashee Rice guy, just in life and maybe this year on the NFL field. Look. I think we do have to caveat this as saying that it seems like Rashee Rice is rehabbing his injury on the fly versus, a lot of these people in the last month at the facility doing it with professionals. He was in jail
He was in
So
jail.
are we seeing that in front of our eyes and playing out 100%? Now, also, I think a lot of the training camp clips, and there's one that stands out to me where, it's 7-on-7 in the red zone, extended play. He's locked up in man coverage, and then Cyrus Allen peels off on a string and catches it in the corner of the end zone for a score.
Down, baby.
Rashee Rice has never been good against man coverage. At the same time, when he plays, Rashee Rice has averaged over 15 fantasy points or 17, depending on your platform, per game. He is clearly their number one wide receiver when on the field, and that has been from year one until this past season and when healthy. So it's tough for me to overlook how productive he's been. And unless they're totally changing and reworking this passing attack, I still am wondering where the football is going to. Is it going to go to Xavier Worthy, Matt, who I think is who he is in the league now? Is it going to declining Travis Kelce? And if not, is that the boom case for Cyrus Allen? Because if those three things aren't working, then Rashee Rice is still going to score fantasy points this season.
Yeah, I get it. I think the problem there is, though, that the Chiefs have a real incentive to rework that passing game based on the results from last season. And I think I totally hear your point about the man coverage stuff. That's never what Rice was doing. I would actually argue that he was worse against man coverage last year than he was in the brief moments he had in 2024, which is fair because, he was coming off an injury. You get that. He's coming off of an injury once again. And I think I actually think, Josh, if you are going to be optimistic about Kenneth Walker, which I am, being and you are too, you took him in this draft, being a change force for this team as a pass catcher, as a steady, efficient rusher. I actually do think that comes at the expense of Rashee Rice, who out of 112 receivers who have run 600 or more routes since Rashee Rice entered the league, he is 112th in air yards per target. That's got to get way more real at some point. And yeah, you'd certainly like to see him, looking better in training camp if it was going to get more real. But yeah, I think it's fair to dock him, but not because of the training camp clips, just because of some of the things that are surrounding Rashee Rice and some of those variables there is kind of the way I would look at it. It would be nice if Xavier Worthy was healthy. That would be nice, but he's not either. So we'll see what happens there. Okay. Next one coming in from Evan Michael 1990. Justin Jefferson, because where's the Kyler Murray hype from Vikings camp? I mentioned this. I actually did move Justin Jefferson out of the first round for me. He's a second. I think he's a second round pick this year. I get it. We're just really baking in a lot of optimism here. He was wide receiver 37 in points per game last year. I get it. That was with JJ McCarthy. But do you think this team is done? Yeah, no. I get it. But do you think this team is done with McCarthy? Don't you think there's a chance with just how the way that this went? You think there's a chance?
They are so done with JJ McCarthy. I don't think JJ McCarthy is on this roster in week one.
Well, I think that'd be fair. That'd be fair. I don't know, man. I think with the Kyler Murray part of it all too, good quarterback, it will be better than last year. And I still have Jefferson as my wide receiver 6. I would just much rather take a shot on some of those running backs that we were talking about earlier over Justin Jefferson if we're looking at that round 1, round 2 turn.
Yeah, we disagree here. I have Justin Jefferson as my 9th overall player. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Jordan Addison, where I do believe that we are getting a discount on this offense because they were 26th in scoring last year. And this offense that, Justin Jefferson was still wide receiver 4 across the league in terms of team target percentage and wide receiver 5 in terms of air yards percentage. So it's not like the usage or the opportunity change at all. It was just the person throwing him the football. And in literally every other instance that we've had another non-JJ McCarthy or Brosmer quarterback throw him the football, Justin Jefferson has been incredible. He was the wide receiver 3 in points per game with Sam Darnold and the wide receiver 5 with Kirk Cousins and Nick Mullins throwing him the football. So I'm not as high on Kyler Murray over the last 2 seasons as other people have been because he abandons plays a bit too often and he goes a bit maverick and doesn't necessarily read it out. And once we get to the red zone, he just turns down wide open Trey McBride throws. At the same time, I would like to think that KOC is a good enough coach that he can say, hey, trust me, man, trust the environment, hit your back foot in the face of pressure and throw it where you need to throw it to. Because if that happens, we have seen far less talented quarterbacks raise this offense to top 10 in scoring. And I still think there's a pathway for them to do that this year 100%.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins at his best is a better quarterback than Kyler Murray we've seen so far. I think Sam Darnold at his best is probably better than what we've seen out of Kyler Murray lately. And so I think we're getting we are getting a slight discount on some of these guys potentially, but it's also a high wire act offense too, a very boom or bust offense. And Kyler Murray is a very boom or bust quarterback. So I think it will look better. I mean, look, I'm already pricing in a lot of improvement off of last year, having him as the wide receiver 6, but I get it. A lot of optimism here on Justin Jefferson. So I actually think you probably are feeling better right now that Kyler Murray has been named the starter than you were a week ago. So I'm not sure he's somebody you should necessarily be dropping based on the camp reports. But all right, so that's it. That's all we got time for this week. If you got a lineup question, trade debate, or league controversy, the fantasy hotline here is open all season long. So send us your toughest questions. We might just feature them in an upcoming episode. Josh, appreciate you, buddy. This was an electric show. Tight end premium. We've solved it for the people out there.
Yeah. Don't draft Josh Allen and a tight end back to back. Just be different than producer Colin, and you're going to win your tight end premium league.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much don't do that. And definitely under no circumstances take both Broncos backs. As Josh put it very well, even Sean Payton doesn't want to have both of those guys on his roster. Okay. Great show today and great piece of news from us at Yahoo here today. It is Yahoo Fantasy's 29th year, and to celebrate day 4 of 29, we are introducing Yahoo Fantasy Ultra. Yes, that is right. It is a new Fantasy Plus subscription tier. Yahoo Fantasy Ultra includes everything in Fantasy Plus, as well as the Ultra Draft Kit, 100-plus page playbook that folks like myself and Josh have just been working a ton on, plus behind the scenes, those folks have been working even harder. Fewer ads, over $1,000 plus in perks. Definitely make sure you check out Yahoo Fantasy Ultra. It is absolutely a great product that you will love. And that does it from us today here on this show. Thanks to our friends at Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's here all season long celebrating the passion, traditions, and unforgettable moments that make football America's obsession. You know what I'm obsessed about? Sunday shows, preseason action, as Josh mentioned. He's so excited about it that not just Josh, Hayden also going to join me to recap week 1 of the preseason on Sunday live at 4 p.m. Eastern here on this YouTube channel. Until then, we are out.